The dynamic duo Roach and Zendaya have been tearing us up with the Odyssey premiere appearances. And every single time Zendaya appears on the red carpet or shows up at a premiere, she looks fabulous. So, exactly how is Roach doing it? How is he procuring these garments? And exactly what is the framework that he is using to do it? Well, there's a combination of custom and also law that helps to make this magic happen. And today we're going to break it down just a little bit to help everyone, young stylists and designers alike, to know exactly what to do in order for you to ensure that your PR is good, your garments are protected, and to also ensure that that garment loan is not going to be at your detriment. So, if you like this fashion law content, please hit that like, share, follow, and subscribe button for more, and let's get into it. For nearly a century, beginning with the likes of Paul Poiret and Josephine Baker, many have asked the question, exactly how are celebrities and public figures being dressed by these designers and who is responsible for making it happen? And the answer is the stylist. In fact, the stylist is the person that acts as the bridge between the celebrity and the brand. Often the person that helps to design the taste and the aesthetic of the celebrity while also helping to craft the future of a designer and even their marketing and exactly what sells and what doesn't. The biggest thing that also is important to remember is that the celebrity and the stylist have a hand in determining what is going to be the trend and what's going to be the hot topic, and the brand has the determination of giving something to the consuming audience or even the consumer who is able to afford the luxury item exactly what they're going to be looking for in the world as far as the fashion scene goes. So with respect to that, when we look at who is important and who is actually at the center of this deal, it is the stylist, right? The reality of it is that the stylist, legally speaking, acts as the agent for the celebrity and is the person that goes out to procure the garment or to get the garment for them to wear for whatever event. So whether it is a red carpet, a premiere, or even a benefit like the Met Gala, the reality of it is that the stylist is the person that makes the largest sum of decisions in determining who looks good and who does not. With respect to contracts, usually the way how stylists and brands make an agreement for a celebrity or a public figure to wear their garment or to wear one of their wares is usually by virtue of going back and forth in communication, whether it be email, text message, even snail mail and written letter is still used by some designers as well, depending upon how they choose to transact business. Generally, by the virtue of these communications going back and forth, they create terms, they negotiate, and they usually reach something in the middle where they help to define exactly the terms of the loan. They usually define the location that the garment will be worn at, who is wearing it, exactly how things are supposed to go, and exactly the delivery of the garment and how they're supposed to be brought back to the brand or the retailer in question. Usually with those particular agreements, again, they are not done in a formal way where it's like signing a contract for an apartment. It's not usually a contractual agreement that has a bunch of legalese attached to it. Usually it is what we consider to be the layman's contract, which is essentially an agreement between two people based off of the mutual agreement and understanding of the parties. Usually because a contract consists of a simple offer and acceptance and the consideration, usually what that means is that it doesn't really require all of the formalities. However, it's important to also note that when there is a lack of formality in contracts, things can happen and things often do happen. It's also important to consider that the stylist has a very unique role as a legal matter as well. Now, in United States law, we usually look at a stylist sometimes as an agent. And an agent usually is defined as somebody who is working on behalf of another person for a particular goal. So basically, if I send somebody to the store for me, they are my agent. They are performing a action for me and they're going to gain a benefit or some sort of recompense for that. So what that usually means is that the stylist is going out to do the work of the client, whether that be the public figure or the celebrity, to come back with something that makes them, and also, and likely of that, they're also going to work with the brand because the brand also has their own interests as well. And in brokering that business deal, they are that link, they are that connection. As a result, the stylist has to ensure that they engage in their own legal due diligence, which basically means that they have to ensure that the agreement to borrow or to loan garments or fashion pieces from brands or fashion houses is airtight. And what happens oftentimes is that discrepancies regarding pricing or how to handle damages or returns can sometimes arise if they're not clearly stated in the negotiations. that when you're talking about contracts, usually it is that you want to include more detail. And often in these informal agreements, they lack the detail that's necessary to protect the brand or the stylist, and sometimes even the celebrity in question. Generally, in these situations, the type of document that is used to help broker a sort of deal when a stylist is trying to procure or get clothing for their client is called a pull letter, or a garment loan agreement, or also known as a letter of responsibility. Often in the industry, you'll see all three names used interchangeably with one another, and depending upon which market you're in, one term may have more commonplace than the other. But generally, they are all the same thing. And with respect to that type of document, what they do is they help to outline the terms and conditions of how the garment or the piece is to be borrowed, used, shipped, and returned, and exactly what should happen should there be any sort of damage, theft, or loss of the garment in question. The basic elements of a pull letter or a loan agreement for fashion houses between stylists and the fashion brand itself usually has to consist of very specific terms. And these terms include the name of the stylist and the fashion brand in question, the date and location for which the garment is needed and how the garment will be worn during that particular time frame, the method of how the garment will be shipped and transmitted to the stylist, and then also back from the stylist to the brand in question, what should happen in the event of any damages. So basically, if the garment gets a stain on it or gets a rip on it, exactly how that will be handled and who will be responsible financially for that damage or repair, and then also who will be financially responsible for the loss, which is important to consider because is that the stylist is going to be responsible for it? Is the celebrity going to be responsible for it? And even depending upon the type of garment or the event of the garment, it could even inquire or require some sort of insurance to be held on the garment. So for instance, really old garments such as Zendaya's earrings that she wore for one of the Odyssey premieres, those earrings are over 2,000 years old. So there probably is some sort of insurance that is on those earrings in the event of damage or loss because of the event of the item itself and the rarity of the item. The other thing to consider too is that brands can also have very specific requirements on how they want the garment to be displayed or worn. They may have very specific requirements on how the garment is to be photographed and depicted. And then in addition to that, with stylists now being more present on social media, what they may want to do is create a portfolio or a profile. And so there may need to be some sort of considerations included inside of the loan agreement or inside of the pull letter that talk about social media usage and credit rights regarding intellectual property. So with respect to that, these pull letters and loan agreements for fashion have to make sure that they are very clear and outline the terms specifically so that there is no ambiguity. And when there's less ambiguity, there's less of a problem for the stylist and less of an issue for the celebrity, and also less of an issue for the brand in question because everything is clear and laid out directly on the table in black and white. So while it may not always be clear just from the outside looking in exactly that these stylists like Kollin, Carter, and Roach are maybe using these types of agreements, it's very likely that they are because of the types of garments that they're procuring. They're procuring haute couture, high fashion, and very expensive garments that can cost thousands upon thousands of dollars. And so, oftentimes, because those garments do cost so much money, it would make sense for there to be some sort of written documentation that is exchanged. While it is customary for stylists to usually call in the favor and leverage, it's still important to note that there has to usually be some sort of paperwork behind the scenes to ensure that things are there. You know, we always say in the law that it's good to have a safety net just in case you fall walking on the tightrope. And that's the same principle that would probably be important to use in this particular situation. So in the event that you have Zendaya wearing these 2,000-year-old earrings and one of them happens to fall on the ground and chip, well, that gold is, again, 2,000 years old, and you don't know how you're going to replace that. So what may happen is that you need some sort of insurance to ensure that if that does happen, that damage is covered or called for. In addition, you also have to consider the fact that there are times where garments may not make it to their destination because of shipping issues. We live in a world where shipping, even for regular consumer products, could be snarled up due to supply chain issues, weather changes, or even basic breakdowns in vehicles. And one of the most important things to consider is that contracts also need to call for that as well. A contract with contingencies is a good contract. With that being the case, in the event that hypothetically Law Roach wasn't able to make it from the Schiaparelli show and make it to London in less than 12 hours for Zendaya to wear that dress that was just previewed in the show, there would have had to have been some sort of contract provision that would have called for some sort of recompense or some sort of reimbursement had the garment not made it, or say for instance the garment got damaged in transit somehow, some way. There would have to be some sort of provision or some sort of assurances to help recompense Schiaparelli in the event that something broke on the dress or something may have ripped or torn. It's important to realize that fashion is about the glitz and the glamour, but also there are documents and legal frameworks that help move things in the background that many of us just don't see. And with that being said, I hope I was able to help shed some light on pull letters, letters of responsibilities, or garment loan agreements so that you can understand it for yourself, for your clients, and also for your brand. And if you like this content and you want to get more, please hit that like, share, follow, and subscribe button. And I hope to see you in the next one. Toodles.